Joining me today is UFC bantamweight contender Cory Sandhagen, who takes on TJ Dillashaw in the main event of the May 8th event. Cory, first of all, happy birthday, and I appreciate you joining me today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks a lot.
I'm assuming you can't exactly celebrate properly, so are you leaving that till after, or any plans today?
No, no plans. Just gonna train and do the whole routine stuff. When I'm in camp, holidays and birthdays and stuff don't really exist, so just a normal day.
I can imagine. Well, hopefully we'll get to celebrate after. And of course, a pivotal fight with TJ Dillashaw. I think most people are looking at it as a number one contender fight. Is it safe to say? Have you been told anything, first of all, by the UFC that the winner of this will get a title shot?
Yeah, that was mentioned. Hopefully that's the case. But what makes me most nervous is that like with the rematch and with Sterling's surgery and stuff, who knows when I'll be fighting afterwards. So and I know that a lot can happen in a year. So that's kind of what has been told to me, but who knows? Like I said, a lot can happen in a year. So I'm just gonna take it day by day and kind of see what the environment is like after this one and kind of within the next year when I think I'll be able to fight for it maybe.
And yeah, you took me to my next point, or something I was going to bring up later. Of course, the Peter Yan Aljamain Sterling fight ends in disqualification. We assumed it was going to be kind of an immediate rematch around summertime, but of course, after Aljamain underwent surgery, what was your reaction when you heard all of that? Was that hard? I know you're focusing on TJ, but you also have plans of, you talked about wanting to be champion at the end of 2021. So when you hear something like that, was that kind of like discouraging?
Uh, I wouldn't say that it was as discouraging as it was kind of just like you want to give Aljamain kind of the benefit of the doubt, just because the way that the fight happened. But it's kind of hard to give the guy the benefit of the doubt the way that he's acting after his fight. But if he needs the next surgery, I guess he needs the next surgery. I'm not really going to speculate on it too much. It's more about me and focusing on what I can do. All of that cliche stuff that everyone says that is true. That's what I kind of stick with. But it wasn't as discouraging as it was just kind of a bit annoying.
And what did you make of that situation? Because obviously it was such a massive topic of debate. I mean, it's not Aljamain's fault he got kneed, right? I mean, a lot of people accusing him of acting. Some people feeling like he shouldn't have been given the title. I don't know if it should have been vacant, or rules are rules, right? But what did you make of everything that went down?
Mm, I keep fighting. So all of the drama that kind of comes with all of that stuff is it feels like really not my place to be a part of. So as far as the fight goes, I was really, I learned a lot by watching both of those guys in the fact that I think that they both showed some holes that I think were pretty obvious, and I'm excited to watch them kind of fight again, just from a strategy standpoint, where I can kind of see some more holes and just develop a better and better game plan for when it's time to fight one of them. So as far as all of that goes, I just keep fighting, and I watch the fight in order to gain information and to gain some advantages, and I think that I was able to gain a lot of advantages, so I was excited about that, and they get a fight again, which I'll be able to gain some more advantages, so I'm happy with that part.
Were you surprised at the way it played out? I mean, we expected Aljamain to come out with a lot of volume, but it seemed like Peter Yan was turning the tide completely before he threw the illegal knee. So, were you surprised at the way it played out, and do you expect kind of the rematch to go the same way?
Yeah, I think Jan will definitely beat him in the next one. The way that the fight was going, it was, Aljamain was kind of coming at him with his heaviest artillery, and he couldn't really get anything going. And Jan took it like a champ until he, until he, made a really terrible decision. And and yeah, I mean, definitely Aljamain was losing in my opinion. And if I win the belt like that, I would likely be acting in a very different way. I think that I would be pretty upset because I was losing, not because I got DQ'd. But easier said than done, I guess, because I wasn't in that situation. But the knee looked flagrant. Like I don't think it gets too much looking flagrant than that. So, Jan definitely didn't make a good decision, and I think that he kind of deserves to get stripped with such a flagrant knee, and just an awkward fight in general. I don't know. It was just a, you know, just a weird, not great fight.
Do you ever recall yourself being in a situation like that where whether it's an illegal knee or something like that, where you're in a position like, oh, should I throw it? I shouldn't, because I know it's easy for us from the outside to judge and be like, yeah, it looked pretty blatant from Jan's end. I know there was like some sort of miscommunication with his corner, but when you look at a situation like that, as a fighter, do you go, how does that even happen?
Yeah, it's your job to follow the rules. Like we have to operate inside of this rule set. And whether you agree with the rule set or not, you have to operate inside of them because those are the rules, and it's your job to oblige to those rules. And if you don't, then yeah, you suffer some consequences. And especially when it's as big of a fight as that one, and it's as big of a moment, and like you were winning the fight, man. What are you doing? But yeah, I guess he just lost it. Either I don't know what his take is on it. Maybe he lost his cool. Maybe I have no idea. But yeah, it's your job to follow the rules, and if you can't do that, then yeah, you deserve consequences.
Were you rooting for anyone in particular, like the idea of potentially avenging your loss to Sterling or fighting Jan instead? Like, did you care at all who came out victorious from that one?
No, I don't really care. Only because I know that I'm, fairly young in the sport, and I know that I'll likely fight the both of them again. So I really didn't care. I know that I'll get my one back from Sterling eventually, and I'm really excited to fight Jan just because everyone, talks him up like he's immortal sometimes, and I'm really excited to fight that dude for that reason also. So I think eventually in my career I'm gonna end up fighting the both of them. So whether it's for a belt or not for a belt or whatever, I'll get a shot at both of them.
Right, and you've got TJ Dillashaw next. Before I talk about TJ, you're coming off such a spectacular knockout over Frankie Edgar. I can't not talk about it. I mean, I feel like that's a highlight we're going to see time and time again. You've had some entertaining moments in your career and finishes and stuff like that, but to have that, I mean, you go with the wheel kick to Moraes, but I think this one tops it, right? Bittersweet a little bit, maybe, because Frankie's such a legend and no one wants to see him go down like that. But to have kind of a highlight like that in your career, what did that feel like?
Yeah, it feels good. It feels like it was more of like, all right, finally I get a couple of those,
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I think it's as much as we try to organize this game of fighting and try to, pretend that we're 100% in control of the circumstances, we're not. And I know that eventually it's always kind of, up to the stars of when something like that happens, and yeah, when it does happen, you feel really grateful for it, and it just doesn't happen like that all the time. So when it does, great, and definitely a little bit of props to myself, but definitely some, props to the stars for lining up the way that they did in order for me to kind of have that happen in the way that it did.
And did you almost feel like, and that's no disrespect to Frankie, but you were the betting favorite going into this one. You are highly touted. Even after the loss to Sterling, I feel like a lot of people still highly tout you as a future champion. So do you almost feel like you had to have that kind of performance? Did you have any pressure at all like that? Like maybe a decision wasn't going to cut it or something like that?
Yeah, I always put pressure on myself just to like I want to be one of the best guys to have, been a part of this sport. And I don't really take that too lightly, and that's why I work really, really hard in order to do so. And I try to work harder than all of my peers, and so yeah, I don't think that you get to set the goal of, hey, I want to be one of the best MMA fighters in the history of MMA and not have a ton of pressure get stacked on top of you because of that. Um, so, you know, if you have high ambitions, you definitely are going to deal with a lot of pressure. So, I put a lot of pressure on myself, but that's it's not a negative thing. It's a good thing. And but yeah, every single fight has a lot of pressure on myself in order for me to, be able to be the person that I want to be in this life.
Well, you've certainly had some spectacular finishes in your last couple. You get TJ Dillashaw, a guy you have history with in terms of obviously having trained together. It was back in around 2014, am I correct?
Yeah, I don't know. The years kind of go by weird. It
Around
feels
then,
like it was all, yeah. It feels like it was a long time ago, but yeah, that sounds about right.
right. So, I mean, you're both of you, I guess, are completely different fighters, but I'd say you probably changed a lot more, right? Because he was a champion, he was in his prime. You were still a young up and comer. So, would you say like you're gonna come out a lot different to him than vice versa? Is that fair to say that probably he won't know what to expect more than you wouldn't know?
Yeah, I suppose that's maybe fair, maybe not though. I mean, the guy's been out for 2.5 years almost now, so I mean, who knows what he's been doing in that time? I know that he had a couple shoulder surgeries, which probably put him out for a little bit. So, um, and I know that I've been working really hard in those 2 years. I don't really know what he's been doing. But yeah, I suppose that that's probably the narrative is that like, TJ's probably going to come back and not as great version of TJ, but that's just a narrative that I'm not going to buy into. I'm going to buy into the narrative that's going to keep me safer, which is the one of TJ is going to come back a better TJ. And that's where I'm going to keep my headspace and just because it's safer for me to do it that way.
How often did you guys get to train? Did you like hit the mats with him a lot during your time when he was at Elevation?
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, we were sparring partners. Like, there was a lot of guys on the team back then, but it was like a lot of in and out people. I'd say maybe the core was like 30 people or so, and then you take the guys that are in your weight class, and that's usually around like out of the 30, maybe like 10 of them you could probably train with, and then so I mean like yeah, I mean it was like a group of 10 people, and me and him were a part of that group. So uh, yeah, I mean, we weren't like friends hanging out on the weekends and stuff, but we were definitely, like pals in the gym. Like I had no issues or anything with TJ.
Without necessarily saying how the sparring sessions went or something like that, because I know some fighters don't like to talk about it, but do you think that plays into a factor into the fight at all for you personally? Like, do you ever look back? I mean, it kind of has to, right? Since you sparred with him for so long.
No, I don't think so, honestly. I think TJ was the champ because he built a really strong mental game, amongst a number of other reasons too. But I don't think that it's gonna have that much of an impact, to be honest. I think when we get in there, we're both gonna look at each other like we're just another person in a way, and I think that that's how we're gonna look at each other. And I think regardless of who was getting the better hand in sparring 5 or 6 years ago or whenever it was, isn't really going to matter. I think that he's gonna come back hungry, and I know that I'm hungry as ever. And I think we're gonna clash. Like it's gonna be who wants it more, and I'm excited for that part.
And of course, he's been sidelined for a couple of years because he failed the drug test, and a lot of people are wondering like what he's going to be like off of EPO. A lot of people are saying maybe, I mean, Cody was saying he's been doing good his whole career. I don't know what your take is on all that, but are you expecting uh his performance to be affected at all? Like we're going to get a different TJ after this suspension?
Uh, the safer answer is I no, but so I mean that's where I keep myself. But I mean, yeah, if he was on EPO or whatever type of drugs he was on for his entire career and he's off of them, then that's 100% gonna play a factor. Am I banking on that? Absolutely not. But if that is the case, which I have no idea if that's the case or not, then yeah, he's probably not going to be coming back the same guy.
And how would you say your relationship with him is now? I know you said you weren't exactly like friends, like you weren't like hanging out and stuff. You were just like gym pals and stuff like that. But I know he wasn't too happy with some of the stuff that you said. I don't think it was anything malicious from your part. You were just kind of answering the questions you were being asked in interviews and stuff like that. But he said, he's like, I like Cory, but it was, I don't know what he said. It was a little bit of a douche move or whatever for you saying what you said. So how would you describe your relationship with TJ? I don't know if they're going to set you guys up with press conference or any of this stuff they do in a build up, but how would you kind of assess your relationship with TJ?
Uh, I don't think that we really have a relationship now, I would say. And that's not because of any bad blood or anything. It's just because, he trains with a different team and, most of the things that we had in common were that we trained on the same team. I don't really know what I said exactly that made him uh call me a douchebag. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, what did I mean, I definitely made a comment about like his steroid usage, but like, yeah, man, like you shouldn't be using steroids. Like, I don't think anyone's gonna be on board or on your side for that, whether we train together or not. Um, and then and then I said that I was doing good against him when we were in sparring, which was also the truth too. So I don't, I guess sometimes saying the truth makes you a little bit of a douchebag. Also, I can agree with that, uh, but yeah, I don't know. There's I'll let as much bad blood as he wants to create. He can create on his own. To me, this thing is about winning a world championship, and he's in the way, and that's about it. That's as far as my mind goes. I don't care about TJ as any type of relational anything. TJ is, like I said, just another dude that I got to beat in order for me to accomplish my goals.
And yeah, because I mean, you've been pretty cordial with everyone you fought so far. So would you say like if he's willing to engage that kind of stuff, like for you, it's all the same, right?
Yeah, it's all the same. I mean, if he wants to go that route, then I feel like I have plenty of, juice on him, probably just like he maybe has some juice on me. So it's up to him, Like I'm gonna play like a gentleman's game until someone starts playing hardball, and then the best way to lose in any type of battle is if someone's playing nice with you and you start playing mean and you keep playing nice with them. So if he wants to go that route, then we can. But I don't really. I'll leave that up to him.
Right. And how do you see the fight with TJ playing out? Have you kind of envisioned and broken down how you see it playing out?
Yeah, I think that I'm working on a lot of really cool stuff right now. I think um, my entire game, I don't really know when it's been happening. Maybe it's been during this quarantine time, or maybe it's just because of the really high level guys that I've had to be fighting in the last year or two. I think that my game has really evolved. I mean, certainly my mental game has evolved big time. I go in with uh, a much better mindset, I guess you could call it. And I've really hammered down the performance part of fighting, which is just a skill in its own. So I'm excited about all of those things, but I'm also excited about the technical things that I've really been working on. Obviously, without going into too much detail, if the fight does last longer than 30 seconds, than my last one, I think that we'll be able to see like some really cool new technical things that I've been working on that I think is different than a lot of the people that are doing it in the sport. And I like to be, the guy coming up with all of the new stuff, and I think that's who I am. And hopefully, I don't get to show it because I get to knock him out really quickly. But if I do, then that's cool with me too.
And Cory, I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm going to leave you with one last question. I mean, some people felt like maybe even after the win over Frankie, you could have gotten a title shot. Obviously, things didn't play out that way with everything with Jan and Sterling. But in a perfect world, you get the win over TJ. Is it a waiting game after that? Are you willing to fight somebody else? Or do you feel like, right, at that point, like I've done enough? Because we've got kind of Rob Font and Cody Garbrandt on the other side of the bracket.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll all depend on just the environment. I feel like the game just evolves really quickly, and I think that someone could win really big, and that could be a challenge to my number one contention spot. And in that case, that person might need to be taken out too. And if that's the case, then yeah, they'll get taken out. So I can just maintain the spot until it's my time to, earn the world championship. So I guess we'll see. But yeah, if someone's gonna challenge that number one spot for me, then yeah, I'll take that person out too. And then whenever these two get their stuff together and have their fight, then I guess we'll see. So I guess the answer is we'll see.
All right. Well, Cory, I really appreciate you doing this again. Happy birthday. Fortunately, no celebration for you, but hopefully after the fight. So I appreciate you taking the time and best of luck on May 8th.
Yeah, thanks a lot.